What's up, guys? What's going on? It's been a while since I've done a live, and just wanted to touch base with you guys, go over a few things. Um, First thing is an Albert Bell swing. Let's see here. I'm gonna share that. So this is a new Albert Bell swing I got. Albert Bell is number 8 on the pound for pound list, and someone who's really forgotten about. His stats were pretty awesome. Let's just take a look at what his stats look like. 144 OPS plus, 295 lifetime batting average. Hit an average of 40 homers a year. It's pretty insane. I mean, about 10 years. So obviously, had he added another 5 years, 6 years maybe, he would have made the Hall of Fame. So let's see here. Let's go. Let's just take a look at his action here. So something that I really think of when I think of Bell's swing is the casted out move of the hands here. This is actually kind of touches on the one change that I made that kind of set me on my path to try to understand the swing. When I was in college, I made a change and really suddenly, I mean, from one day to the next, literally was hitting differently. The ball was coming off my bat differently. I could tell in batting practice it was different. And then in the game, I actually had my first 4-for-4 game in my life after making this change. And we happened to be playing the best team, College of Charleston, best D1 team we'd play all year. And I went 4-for-4, and really started hitting. Even had a few homers in the next few weeks, and I'd never hit a homer before. So this was something that showed me that quick change is even possible. I didn't even think that change could happen like that when it came to the swing. And the one change I made was kind of, well, I say it's one change, but it kind of required the whole body to move differently. But one of the things I did was I casted the bat out. In other words, as you can see, Bell here, he's not real casted. Someone like Jackie Robinson would be even a little bit more casted. But there's, as you guys know, I mean, even changing the bat angle just a few inches is going to feel a lot different. For most people, what Bell is in here is going to feel a lot different than what they're used to, because the bat is probably, I don't know, 5 inches closer to his helmet. Most of you guys are used to the bat being closer to the helmet at this point, not so casted out. I actually felt that in the wrists. I felt like I was actually casted out in the wrist. This was kind of the position I would start in, with my wrist just casted out. And then as I started into the swing, of course, you're going to get a little bit less cast, but it was still significantly more than what I would experience before. I was one of these guys who, was sold on this was the way. Take the hands to the ball, stay inside the ball, whatever. Yes, swing down. I'm not so focused. I don't think swing down is really the big problem that a lot of people think it is. I wouldn't advise swinging down, but I think the primary problem with this kind of teaching is that the arm is kind of separating from the body. the hands are firing out independently and you're not getting a whole lot of the body rotation force. You're also not going to get a lot of consistency. People think that I'm just a power hungry person when it comes to the swing mechanics. You're actually, I favor when it comes to mechanics, I think what the most important thing is that you set it up to be really consistent, because from there you can just turn up the dial on how fast you're moving, and therefore you can hit more consistent hard hit balls. And that's what I think the best hitters are doing. They're really consistency masters. Um, but they just, because their swing is so reliable and consistent and the barrel is able to be squared so easily because of their mechanics, they are able to go at it harder. So I remember when I was struggling and going and doing this, I was like not even swinging hard because I would so rarely make square contact that I was almost trying to slow down my swing to ensure that I would square up the bat. Um, anyways, so I had this casted out position and I kind of tried to feel like I kept it there. Well, when you do that, if you guys try this, what you'll notice is, well, now your body kind of has to move completely differently. Um, it's more involved, whereas before when I'm doing this action, I mean, you could do this action and not even move the body. As Bregman says, keep the shoulders pointed straight ahead. I vehemently disagree with that. And I think, thank goodness, he doesn't have a lot of that in his swing when it comes to game swings. I think possibly at some point what he's working on could actually work into his swing, and it could affect his performance quite a bit. If he still continues to try to not rotate the shoulders, eventually he's going to get it done, and that's going to be a bad thing for his performance. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. A lot of times these guys think they're making it a significant change, but they're not really changing the key thing that's working for them yet. But sometimes they work on it enough that it does work into their swing and it does mess up swings. So Belle has the bat casted, and one of the main things you're going to feel is you have to get a little bit more hand depth. I mean, if you casted the bat and tried to keep your hands more in front of your chest, you can see that's just not going to work. Something else kind of has to get involved, and the body gets more involved. You get more hand depth. And I felt like I was kind of like almost really like cast it out and just kind of keeping that cast movement all the way through. I think that can work well for people just to feel that. But here you can see, I mean, that's pretty casted out. Normally the bat, like I said, be closer to his helmet a little bit, getting more what's called bat lag. But you can see, look how much his body has to get involved. Now here he is in a beautiful lead side dominant position. This is textbook lead side dominant. The back arm has just dropped into, you could say, the slot where the back elbow just kind of drops down towards the hip. It's really, it's what your lead side would do all on its own if it was going to generate the most possible force. The back arm is not overexerting. And then as he goes into contact, I mean, just beautiful positioning here. This has to be I just got this swing on video recently. This has to be one of my favorite swings that I've ever seen on video. It's just technically so really just beautiful. This is textbook positioning. He's just so well connected at contact. At no point, like, the bat is just like entering the zone back here. He could even make contact here and probably hit it out to right field. It's just the bat is just staying through the zone for so long, largely due to that casted out position. And then just love this, how the back arm and bat stay in alignment long into the finish. And then now's when you see, look at that. The wrist literally did nothing the whole swing. Now you see them break. That's the main difference between a lot of these pound for pound greats and just the average swing is the wrist is doing more through contact for people who struggle in hitting. And for a lot of these guys, the pound for pound greats, I think of Trout. There are a lot of guys who kind of Griffey. He didn't. His wrist never broke until the swing was finished, and now you see that the wrists are breaking. So here's a comparison of Griffey and Belle. You can see they look very similar. Griffey has more lag. See how Belle's more casted out. Griffey's bat is a little closer to his body at this point because he's getting a lot more lag. There they are at contact. Look very similar at contact. But this is what conventional instruction really has said is bad. I mean, we're looking at the number 17 and number 8 pound for pound hitters of all time. I mean, two of the few in the top 20 who are even from this era. So many of them are from way back in the 50s. Or, Mantle is up there, Hank Aaron. These guys are some of the most recent. I'm trying to think of anyone in the top 20 is even as recent as these two guys. And I can't offhand think of anyone. But and here we're looking at probably the most recent two best pound for pound hitters of all time. There's Eric Davis, but he kind of came way before these guys, relatively long before, maybe 10 years before. And look at their positioning. Exactly what they say you shouldn't do. They say that this is pulling off the ball. They say that this is dragging the barrel. What Belle does, they always say that this is, I mean, that is something I hear all the time still, is this whole idea of casting is a bad thing because then you're going to come around the ball. That doesn't happen. Let's back up on Belle. Here he is casting. And what they say happens when you cast is that your arms are going to get out, but they're like forgetting that no, you cast out, and then as you start forward, there's inertia pushing your hands back. You don't come around the ball with your arms. You do the opposite, really. Your arms actually stay closer to your body longer into the swing, and therefore you can make contact in a really connected position. And then here they are at the end, and their back arm and bat are in alignment well into the finish. Another way to say that is like the flip that I was just talking about doesn't ever happen in the swing. The flip is hardly contributing at all. Whereas in the regular swing, it's like, not the regular, but in how they teach, or like a poor swing. Ironically, how they teach is really the definition of a poor swing if you're going to take the hands out like that. In that kind of swing, it's like a majority of the power. Like you're putting so much of the responsibility to provide power on the wrists and like the arms. And really, they should just be kind of like, I don't wanna it's not just loose, but they should be, like, slight adjustment mechanisms, you know? They should be there if you need them to adjust on the pitch, but, like, they shouldn't be set up to be the primary source of power. I wanted to also talk about Mark DeRosa. I hope you guys can hear this if I play it. Um, it's just interesting what DeRosa said. Someone sent me something he said. Let's take a listen.
Kids, if your barrel's underneath this top forearm, you're in the slot. If it's above it, wholesale changes. I'm serious.
I like that. I'm serious. This is something that literally was not talked about. I'm surprised to even see the mainstream talking about that. The mainstream is, let's see, I wrote about the slot in 2010. So that was the first I've heard of people saying that the barrel should drop flat, and I called it the slot. I didn't create that name. I was bringing that over from golf. That's what they call slotting uh, the club. It's basically dropping the club on a flatter plane. Your back elbow kind of gets closer to your side at the same time. And I haven't heard someone as mainstream and conventional as Mark DeRosa talk about slotting as being important. But this is how it works. Everybody wants, everybody thinks that the mainstream is on top of things. And when they watch the MLB network, man, they're watching the latest understandings of the swing. Here they are 15 years behind, you know, just, just 4 years ago, they never even would have said this. They were still on, and they still are on, hands to the ball kind of. A lot of them still believe in the swing down thing. But as you can see, DeRosa's showing us that, people are changing. And I don't know. It makes me think of how people just kind of, it's science is another one. People think that science is going to give us all the answers. Oftentimes, I mean, science is a good tool, but it's not always gonna give you the answers. I mean, right now, everyone's trying to take the scientific approach. I've been to these conventions. I'm just not interested. The energy there is, these ABCA conventions, and everyone is looking for, they're just science crazed. And what they think is science is gadgets that give you readings, like launch angle and exit velo. And I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what certain measurements they have. You guys probably have heard it. I don't really know. They're measuring like angle of this and angle of attack or launch quickness. I don't know. So you get all this data. You know how far away you are from actually making sense of the data, creating some sort of understanding or story that's being told by the data. I mean, it's like a bunch of detectives in a murder case, just collecting the data and expecting that to be the end of it. Oh, we collected all this data, No, you still have to kind of make a story out of it so you know what more data to collect. If you just collect the temperature it was that day and all this science, collecting data, what state it happened in, the temperature, the wind, like that is you as a human have to put together a story of what you think is going on. Does that make sense? I mean, all these college coaches are collecting all this data. Do they have the time? It's probably going to take 5, 6, 10 years, could take 20 years to make some sort of understanding that's going to help you. So in that case, I really think that these coaches out there, I think if you want to get an edge, don't fall into the data trap. Don't fall into the I gotta buy this gadget and that gadget trap. Uh, I've said before, like even this kind of, and again, I know I'm rambling, but um, it kind of makes me think of pitching machines. How much time, is wasted on pitching machines, lugging the thing out there. And I know a lot of coaches are telling me, it's not possible. How are we going to get arms to throw? We're not allowed to bring in people from the outside to pitch to our kids. It's against the rules. I would just find a way. I mean, even if it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if you are throwing just 50%. Try to get some curveballs in there. But as long as they're actually seeing a ball released from the hand and there's some sort of trying to get them out going on, that's going to be way better than utilizing a pitching machine. And yet, not only are people wasting money on these things, but time. I mean, again, like you have to store the pitching machine. You got to tell a bunch of players to bring it out. Sometimes it doesn't work. You got to figure out where to plug it in. And all this is just wasting time. But coaches, honestly, out there seem totally fine with wasting a lot of time. I just think they almost like to work on all this extraneous stuff. Like, I don't know. I'm extreme in this way. I mean, I almost think that you should basically just maybe do a quick warm up. Coaches will fixate on this and like think that they're doing a conditioning, practice. Have them run miles, or have them timed in the mile, or like have them run around the bases maybe a couple times and then one time really fast, and then that's probably good enough, if you're out on the field. Because if you're out on the field, you should probably just get to playing baseball as quickly as possible. And if I was coaching, I'd probably do 95% of my practices would just be inter squad. I've set up practices for high school teams, for all sorts of little leagues and stuff like that. And I tried to make it perfectly so no one's ever just sitting and doing nothing. And it's like people are going to be sitting and doing nothing. There's nothing you can do about it, really. You can't put your eyes on everything. But really what they need to do for their own fun and for their own development as a player and as a person is compete in a baseball game. So I would just scrimmage. I would really just scrimmage, and I wouldn't use machines. And I would throw guys who maybe aren't pitchers. You have plenty of arms on the team. I might even play a game where everyone has to throw and bat and from the opposite side that they're used to. That's kind of the stuff that I would do. That's the stuff that I think we need to do. But I understand what I think needs to be done is so far off from convention that most people don't have the guts to even instill it, even if they believed in it. Anyways. Let's see here. Here's DeRosa's swing. And he admittedly was someone who just was taught, throw the hands out at the ball. He had a decent number of homers, I think, per year. I wanna say they were in the double digits. I think they might have been like 13, 14 homers he averaged a year. So he had some decent power, and he's not that big of a guy. So it just shows you, man, if he just was taught a different approach, and he's even said this with his interview with, Josh Donaldson. Like, "Man, I wish you were around when I was playing." Because he was taught just swing down, throw the hands. But I mean, this is decent positioning. He just naturally probably had good positioning at contact. Oh, I recently did a Joe Morgan. You guys may have seen it. Joe Morgan and Tony Gwynn kind of comparison. So both these guys had a 132 OPS plus for their career. My point was, we are so quick to just hail Tony Gwynn as you know, the god of swing mechanics. Like if you're gonna emulate anybody, emulate Tony Gwynn because he did it the right way. He poked the ball to left field and right field, and he was a pure hitter. That's all nonsense, man. I bought into that too. Look, it's coming from someone. I'm so extreme this way because I was so extreme the other way. I didn't even like power hitters. I thought that was like almost a phony way to play. But it just turns out, guys, that power is just as important as consistency. I'm not saying one is more important than the other, but when our culture is so fixated on consistency over everything else and to the exclusion of power, and even more these days because people are so acrimonious towards these players that are playing now because apparently they are all power and no consistency. Everyone's saying the strikeout rate is so high and the averages have gone down. We're kind of dealing with a couple different issues here. Now we're getting into something a little different. I'm not saying I'm in favor of this change that's going on today in baseball where consistency is dropping, where strikeout rates are going up. That is a separate issue from what I'm talking about with Tony Gwynn and Joe Morgan. That actually, to me, has to do with the swing that's being sold. The swing that's being sold is one that actually, I don't even think it's good at producing power. Maybe the power numbers are up, maybe they're not. Maybe you guys can let me know. I don't know. But I don't think that it's a swing that at least optimizes power because there's still too much in favor of the hands going in front of the chest. This kind of movement in front of the chest is the best. That's kind of the quickest way to summarize what's wrong with today's swing. They've made a lot of changes. Oh, we're staying back. Oh, we're swinging up more. These maybe slightly are contributing to more homers if there are more homers. I don't even know the stats. It could just be that average is going down and strikeouts are going up, and that's it. I don't know if guys have even gotten more powerful. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's about the swing that's being taught, which I don't agree with. The swing that's being taught is not ideal, and it's going to produce lower consistency. And in my eyes, it's not optimizing power. So when I talk about Joe Morgan versus Tony Gwynn, and I say Joe Morgan is the swing to emulate because he's lighter and he had the same OPS plus. So he's a better pound for pound hitter than Tony Gwynn, and therefore his swing is the one that we should emulate more. Looks like my, I don't know. Can someone let me know? Am I still able to be seen? Because it says that my connection is unstable. Let me know if you guys are. I don't know why my connection would be unstable. Let me know if you guys are getting it kind of choppy or what. But it's just, this kind of brings up a lot of different issues, because I think what people are basically misunderstanding about what I'm saying is they're seeing what I'm saying and they're like, man, what is this guy talking about? Players shouldn't focus on power more these days. I mean, they have, all right, thank you, Kevin. They have a lot of power, but it's consistency that's missing. That's fine. That has to do with the swing. To me, that has to do with the less than ideal swing that's being taught. I don't even know if it's much of an improvement on the stuff that was taught in the 80s. I think it's maybe a marginal improvement of what was being taught in the 80s, the whole hands to the ball, swing down. Because to me, the hands to the ball thing is what matters. If you do it on an upward plane or if you do it on a downward plane, that's really the only change that has happened. And to me, that's inconsequential for the most part. Sure, there are guys. I think Jackie Robinson probably could have had a lot more homers if he swung on a more upward plane. You have Davey Johnson, who supposedly the year he went to the Braves and played with Hank Aaron, he suddenly jumped his homers like he had never hit even 20 homers in his life, and I think he hit 43. And what was the change he did? He just swung up a little bit more. But these are two guys, Jackie Robinson and Davey Johnson, who have very good swings to start with. They were just, and a lot of this happened in Ruth's time too. There were a lot of great hitters, Rogers Hornsby, for example, who didn't even realize, like, oh, I didn't realize that lifting the ball was so valuable after Ruth came along. He started doing it, but Hornsby had a great swing to start with. If you have a very hands to the ball swing and you start swinging up, I don't know if that's going to, I mean, if you're Aaron Judge and super strong, yeah, that's going to produce more homers. If you're even 250 or 220, yeah, that's probably going to produce more homers. So maybe that's what we're seeing now. But anyways, it's kind of like people are pegging me as like, how can you say that in this day and age? How can you advocate for consistency being overrated? I'm looking at the counter movement to the all power, no consistency guys today, which is to praise Tony Gwynn. Let's get back to what Tony Gwynn was doing. Why? Why do we have to go on this pendulum of like extreme power? No, extreme consistency. Guys, the best hitters, and Morgan had 3 MVPs. I believe it was 3, if not 2, might have been 2. Okay, Morgan is one of these guys at 160, 170 pounds. He had a lot of power and consistency. Had he been 220 pounds with the same swing and the same talent and all the other skills, I mean, he obviously would have been hitting 40, maybe 50 homers. And probably would have had a higher batting average too, because batting averages, as Bill James illuminated to me in his books, batting average is largely a measure of how hard you hit the ball. So there's some power component in batting average. So he probably would have had both a higher batting average and he certainly would have had higher home runs if he was just the average major league weight of 200 to 215. So I'm seeing this kind of counter movement of praising Tony Gwynn and thinking, oh, we need to get back to that kind of hitting. I don't see why we have to go to the extreme. Why can't we just say, no, the best hitters had high levels of both power and consistency? Maybe they weren't Tony Gwynn high, but in Babe Ruth and Ted Williams' case, they were. They were actually higher. Those guys both, I think, was it Williams was at 344 lifetime. I think Ruth was 342. I think Gwynn was 338. So to me, why downgrade anything? Why downgrade power or consistency? When I downgrade consistency, I'm just saying, no, we have an over obsession with consistency right now. So let's take a look at Morgan's swing. This is very lead side positioning here. Think about if you were going to throw a Frisbee with your, the regular way with your lead arm. Just before you toss it, obviously you're winding up, you're closing that lead shoulder. Think about it if you're going to throw a Frisbee with your back arm. You almost open up just right away, right? So that is the tendency. If you're more back arm dominant, which in my eyes is a bad thing, then you're going to tend to open up too soon. If you're more lead side dominant, you're going to tend to get more in this position that you see Morgan in, where you kind of ready yourself to utilize more of the lead side. And it's just what have they always said? Keep that front shoulder closed. It's just a better position to be in because you kind of give yourself that opportunity to wait on the pitch. And Morgan was a great secondary cushion guy. And here it looks like he's even secondary cushioning a little bit on this one. So he's able to keep that lead shoulder closed. If you guys are finding it hard to transition from swinging with just your lead arm to adding your back arm and staying in a more lead side structure, it's probably because you are not closing the shoulders a lot when you add that back arm. So as you're doing the lead arm progression, focus on not only when you add the back arm, but even before, when you're just swinging with your lead arm, notice the closing of the lead shoulder as at the start before you actually start forward. And then when you add the back arm, ensure that you are doing that still. That will help you stay in more lead side. What happens is we add the back arm and our body's like, oh, let's go to that throwing the Frisbee with the back arm move where the shoulder just flies open. Well, if that shoulder flies open, then you have nothing else but back arm extension anymore. See what I mean? So closing the shoulder kind of sets you up to utilize more lead side. The problem is when people add their back arm, their body kind of thinks, okay, we have the back arm now. Even when the back arm is just hovering, this happens. And your body thinks, okay, we have the back arm. We don't need to close the shoulder as much. And that's why you guys are finding it so hard to transition from swinging with just the lead arm to then adding the back arm. Okay. There you can see this is that lead side move where the barrel just drop into the slot. And look how connected he is at contact. I mean, we just saw that same positioning with Belle. Is it any surprise that this is a top pound for pound hitter of all time? Guys, this is what we tend to see as we move up the pound for pound list. I created the pound for pound list to find the best swings. To me, it's the best equation out there for doing that. And really any iteration of the pound for pound list, if you want to take Sonny's list, or any of the ones that I did before this one that I have now takes into account batting average, because a lot of people were saying that should be taken into account. And I said, fine. So batting average is taken into account. And I think batting average is way better than on base percentage or any equation that includes on base percentage, because batting average has to do with when we swing, what's going on, what kind of result are we getting. Whereas on base percentage is more like you can get hit by the pitch, you can bunt, you can, bunting actually would affect batting average too, but basically you can get hit by the pitch or walk. It doesn't have to do necessarily with the action of the swing as much as batting average. So I like batting average, and then I like at-bats per home run, and that's a measure of consistency. People think that's just power. No, the lower your at-bats per home run, the more consistent you are at hitting the ball with force. And guys, after creating that list, you look at the best pound for pound hitters. You look at the list and you look at their swings. You look at the guys who are really high on the list, and you see more of this kind of positioning that we see from Morgan. And guys, it's completely different than what's being taught, right? Is any coach that you have getting in this kind of position that we've seen from Griffey and Belle before this, and now Morgan, is anyone getting into this position and saying, you guys got to get here at contact, where their shoulders are well open, they're almost facing the pitcher, their back arm is at 90 degrees, their lead arm is close to their chest, they're turned? They're not saying that that's a good position. But it's slowly changing, right? It's slowly changing. And pretty soon they're just going to start advocating for this. It's just going to be common knowledge. There's not going to be any announcement by Major League Baseball, hey, we're switching. It's just everyone's going to slowly change, and the tide is going to change. And I'll just get swallowed up by the tide. You guys won't even remember my name. Take a look at Roberto Clemente's home run swing from the All-Star game. I've seen that many times. It's nothing like the textbook stuff coaches preach. In fact, it breaks just about every rule. Yeah, I know the swing. And Roberto Clemente, I think, he casted quite a bit too. He's one I forget about when thinking about a cast. Interesting, yeah. And he was a decent home run guy, if I remember correctly, but not. Let's just see what he did. 130 OPS plus, 317 lifetime batting average, and 16 homers a year. He's very amazing. He's very Jackie Robinson-like. Let's just see because in Baseball Reference, they actually will say these are the hitters that compare to him. Let's see if Jackie Robinson's in there. Similar batters. They're calling Tony Gwynn the sixth most similar batter. That doesn't seem exactly right to me. Let me see. Did Tony have that many homers? This 16 home runs a year, a slugging of 475. What was Tony Gwynn at? Oh, the OPS plus is very similar. Tony Gwynn was 132. So they're basically the same OPS plus. That might be where they're getting it from. But significantly higher batting average, and home runs per year was 9 for Gwynn, which isn't that bad. But then again, I don't think Gwynn's swing is terrible. And I think it's actually pretty lead side. I don't think you could actually play in the major leagues if you were overly back arm dominant. I think that it kind of weeds a lot of that out. Um, so 9 homers a year, slugging of 459. So 9 homers, that's like 7 homers less than yeah, so obviously Clemente was much more of a power hitter. Gwynn was much more of a consistency guy. But if we look at Jackie Robinson, I think he compares a lot better to Jackie Robinson if I remember his stats right. Jackie Robinson 133 OPS plus. So gosh, very similar to Roberto Clemente. And 313 batting average and averaged 16 home runs a year. So I don't know why. To me, this is much better match for Clemente because he actually averaged the exact same amount of home runs. Batting average is 313, and Clemente's is 317. They're like the same hitter, and they had very similar swings. I think that might be the topic for a future vlog or live stream, because that's really interesting. Those guys had very similar swings, if I'm remembering correctly. Clemente casted quite a bit and kind of drove his body into the hit, but kind of swung on a more downward level plane. So with a great swing, that's just going to get you more batting average. And with a great swing, if you then take it and swing up more, that's going to get you more home runs. But the key is both guys have to have a great swing. You know, if you have a positioning at contact here like Morgan and you're swinging more downward, well, you're going to hit a lot of line drives. You're probably going to have a higher batting average. That's cool. If you want to have a higher, you're still going to have some home runs. But if you want to have a higher batting average and maybe a little less power, that's fine. But you're still a guy who hits for both because you have a position at contact like this, and you're basically more lead side. That's the big difference. You're using more body into the hit, less flip and arms. So, you know, Clemente and Robinson valued batting average probably more. And that's a fine choice because you're a great hitter anyways. You still have quite a bit of pop. You still have 16 homers a year average. That's pretty darn good. Kevin says technology drives everything these days. Yeah. Technology drives everything, man. And like I said, it just isn't the energy that I like to give to the game. This over obsession with technology, this over obsession with like getting the best bat. I just think that focus is like, it's the wrong focus. It turns me away. I don't care for it. Maybe I'm just more old school. I don't know. But at the same time, like, I like video, but I don't like video for any other reason except for video is the best form of feedback. I don't think all this launch. I mean, I'd have to have another 20 years of studying the swing with this new launch angle measurements and data that they get these days. I'd have to have another 20 years to make sense of that. And I don't feel like it's even necessary. I've already, to me, I've learned, and you're going to learn more from video. I think video it gives you essentially a 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional look at the swing right there. It's the best form of feedback. And for some reason, people are being sold on like these gadgets that give you numbers on a page, basically. Numbers on a page is never going to be a better feedback than video. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, video is 1,000 pictures, and it's gonna be better than numbers on a page. Let's see. I appreciate you guys joining me today. I just thought we could just have a little conversation. I haven't touched base with you guys for a while, so we're just doing a little. Sometimes, man, I don't even like to have an agenda necessarily. I just want to kind of go where the video kind of leads me to talk about. Just looking at Morgan's swing here. And here's Gwynn. See, here you can see this kind of action where the hands kind of drive in front of the chest. To me, it's not ideal. And Gwynn, again, still had quite a bit of lead side. Like right here, he's kind of turning into it. And that's not a bad position at all. That's very lead side, how connected that is. So I think that he still had quite a bit of lead side. Honestly, man, I have to say, I think his hand-eye coordination and pitch recognition were probably truly very good because it's uncanny the way he was able to kind of hit the ball where he wanted to. And I don't know. I just think it's probably exceptional levels of hand-eye coordination and pitch recognition. And he was a great athlete. Maybe he just was gifted. I know he was a star basketball player for San Diego State. But here you can see it's just there's a little bit of flip going on in his action. He had a little bit of flip. You can see the back shoulder kind of coming up towards the chin and the bat kind of flipping over. As you can see, it's not in line with the back arm. Guys, can you hit for high average with this swing? Yes, you can hit for high average. It's just not ideal. It's just not ideal because the name of the game for hitting is hitting for high average and high power. You know what I mean? This whole idea that some guys got to go for average and some guys got to go. I think that that's part of baseball overcomplicating something that's really not that complicated. Hitting is about optimizing your power and consistency. That's the name of the game, no matter what your size, no matter what your position in the lineup. I know people want to make it look. Ricky Henderson was praised for having the most leadoff home runs. So why is he even praised for that if the leadoff hitter shouldn't be the one who's hitting home runs? Would they rather him have gotten a walk or a base hit than hit those homers? No, those homers were extremely valuable in the morale of the team for the rest of the game, in setting the tone for the game. And my point is the goal is always to increase power and consistency to the highest possible level. I think the idea of I'm trying to improve, separating power and consistency from hitting is a huge it's a paradigm that we need to get away from. And it's embedded in baseball, with the 5 tools: hitting for power, hitting for average. No, there should be 4 tools: hitting, period. And that should be given its high levels of power and consistency. That's hitting. If a guy has just high levels of consistency, then he's not an ideal hitter. We want to have high levels of both. And good news, there's a swing that gives you that. And that's why I don't think we need to separate the two. There's a swing that optimizes both. And you can get that swing by swinging with just your lead arm a lot and learning to quiet the back arm. Whether a great baseball swing actually needs to have more lead side in it, or we are just a culture who is overly back arm dominant for various reasons, I don't know what's the case. But I do know that most hitters can be helped by utilizing more lead side in their swing and less back arm. So thank you guys. Appreciate you guys joining me tonight. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.